Greetings and welcome to the 15th and final after-action report for the Combat Mission Scottish Corridor campaign. We've followed the 15th Highlander Division through Operation Epsom, commanding the 2nd Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, the 9th Cameronians, with support from the 9th Royal Tank Regiment. We've had a couple of unsuccessful battles, but our victories have far outweighed our losses. This final battle, whilst part of the Scottish Corridor campaign, is not actually a battle in Operation Epsom. This battle takes place on the 1st of August 1944, over a month after Operation Epsom. We are once again in command of the 9th Cameronians, who once again face the 21st Panzer Division. Whilst I've completed Operation Epsom, I did not get the overall campaign result until I've completed this battle for La Mansilière. My order of battle includes C Company platoons 13, 14 and 15, 2 Vickers MMG teams, 3 section from 4 platoon carrier and 6 platoon pioneers. I have 3 Churchills from 15 Troop C Squadron, 5th Battalion and 2 Stuarts. I also have support from 2 81mm off-map mortars with 2 tubes, 1 by 4 guns 25 pounder artillery, 1 by 4 guns of 114mm and 1 by 2 guns of 183mm heavy artillery available later in the battle. I'm allocated 1 Typhoon 1B with a second coming on station 60 minutes into the battle. Reinforcements will be a Sexton and 2 Achilles tank destroyers arriving 60 minutes into battle together with 15 platoon from C Company that I mentioned earlier. The weather is warm, ground conditions good, and I have 90 minutes to achieve my objective. This battle is quite long. I've tried to keep the video as short as possible, but because I wanted to keep the context, it's longer than my normal videos. I hope coverage is interesting and I will hold people's attentions for the full length of the video. Hopefully it'll be interesting enough to keep everyone's attention. If we look at the AO, my start line is to the west and I'm advancing east. I have a long but narrow battlefield. From start to finish, it's approximately 1.5 miles long and perhaps 500 yards across. I have 3 objectives: Paris, Hector and Priam. Paris and Hector are 2 farms relatively close together, with objective Priam requiring a deeper advance. Intel suggests a small defensive force comprising of a few Panzer IVs and maybe a reinforced platoon of grenadiers. I'm expecting approximately 30 combat infantry soldiers, 4 Panzer IVs and maybe 2 to 3 HMG teams, 1 to 2 AT teams and potentially a towed AT pack or 2 in defence. Battalion also advises that German reinforcements are on the way, including a King Tiger tank. The heavy battle tank is not indestructible, but it is very effective, and versus my Churchills, yeah, I don't need to say any more. With the counter-attack on its way, including the Tiger, I'm not going to make an elaborate battle plan. I'm going to set my general direction of advance, my sequence of objectives, and then adjust as I engage the enemy. The terrain is undulating with limited concealment for advancing forces. Both my right and left flanks are exposed, with my left flank rising to a crest in line with objective Hector. I believe my best line of advancement, at least to the first objective, is straight down the middle. I shall use concealment together with overwatch from the tanks to support my infantry advance. I'm going to assume the main road is covered by armour from multiple vantage points and is a kill zone to anyone crossing, so it needs to be done under smoke. Unlike previous battle strategies, I'm reluctant to rush forward in order to secure a strong position to defend against the counterattack. Jerry has a number of Panzer IVs, and they've already repeatedly proved to be effective against my Churchills. As a general tactic, I shall advance with infantry scouts, supported by their platoon and light tanks in close support. My Churchill infantry tanks will provide overwatch for the advancing elements. All forces will leapfrog forward until I can spot and engage the enemy force. In general terms, I'm looking to find, fix and finish the Germans. Enough pre-battle waffle from me. let's push forward and see what we can do against one of, if not the best, battle tank in World War II. As the Typhoon stalks the skies, the infantry lead the advance, scouts out first. One section, 13 platoon, follow. The Typhoon is spotting and bombing something. As the rest of 13 platoon advance. I'm seeing nothing of what the Typhoon is attacking, not even sound contact. Just as some first shots fly over the heads of the lead scout team. I've sent out some scouts from 14 platoon to my left flank, and they spot a Panzer IV. And my Churchill armour starts to move. 3 main tanks and 1 close support tank. With light fire coming in on my right flank, I choose to lay down some smoke to conceal the rest of C Company's advance. The Stuart light tanks are also providing close support. Once again, the Typhoon finds something very interesting on my right flank. The Pioneers are ordered to blow holes in the hedgerow, so the armour can advance with the infantry, and the Churchills advance to provide overwatch as the rest of C Company and the Stuarts head towards the first objective. Other than the light fire that was laid down on the scouts, and of course the sighting of the Panzer IV, I haven't had any other spots. I didn't really get any solid spots on where the fire was coming from on the scouts either. At nearly 15 minutes into battle, I have 2 contacts on my left flank, Panzer IVs, and infantry contacts on my right flank at Objective Paris. My advance up the centre is now reorganising at the copse of trees in front of Objective Paris. My left and right flanks are exposed, and there's no opportunity to manoeuvre armour or infantry up those avenues of advance. I plan to send 13 platoon to engage with AT weapons the 2 Panzer IVs on my left flank. I'm calling in 81mm mortar fire, 8 tubes, onto the 2nd Panzer IV, and I shall send 14 platoon up my right flank to seize Objective Paris. 14 platoon begin their attack with support from the Stuarts. I bring up Pioneers to blow a hole in the wall. 14 platoon start to clear the buildings in front of Objective Paris. I make contact and my first casualty. Detachments from 2 and 3 section 14 platoon move into buildings. I'm trying to flank the defenders. A firefight quickly breaks out. A 3rd Panzer IV is defending Paris. With its thin flank armour exposed, the Churchill quickly withdraws. I withdraw the infantry because they're outgunned. Private Cooper makes one of the most decisive shots in the entire battle. He kills the tank commander and the tank withdraws. As the ambushing grenadiers withdraw, they're exposed and come under fire. The Panzer IV continues to withdraw and moves onto the main highway. 1 section 14 platoon restart their advance. Flushing out the rest of the grenadiers. The Panzer IV on the highway relocates, so I bring up a Churchill to cover the main road. And 13 platoon begins to relocate to my left flank. Something unseen is firing at the Churchill. The shells whiz over the top. The third shot connects, taking out the 75mm gun. The Churchill withdraws under smoke. The rest of 14 platoon pour into the farmhouse in front of Objective Paris, whilst 13 platoon begin to move into the farm buildings on my left flank. I bring up more armour to support the attack on my right flank. But I'm cautious to remain out of line of sight of the 2 Panzers. Contact from something on my right flank, AT. The Panzer Schreck is dealt with. The Churchill withdraws. "14 platoon continue their probe against Paris. The rest of the platoon quickly follow. On my left flank, the Piat team of 13 platoon go to work. Shrapnel holes pepper the hull of the Panzer IV. One and two section quickly move in to support the Piat team. It looks like there was a grenadier squad supporting the Panzer. They're quickly routed. On my right flank, a Churchill gets eyes on the 3rd Panzer IV. I've secured objective Paris. I want to keep momentum, so continue to push 14 platoon towards objective Hector on my right flank. On my left flank, the goal is to continue to use 13 platoon to push round through the cornfield and attempt to take the 2nd Panzer IV, covering the flank of objective Hector. I'm cautious of the defensive areas highlighted in yellow around objective Priam. I've seen AT fire from this area which hit the Churchill earlier on in the battle, and there are 2 active Panzer IVs that I'm aware of. The one specifically in objective Hector has been hit several times by AT fire, but it's still active. On my right flank, close support Churchill takes a hit. A second hit. 2 infantry Churchill lays down smoke, and the Stuart and Churchill reverse. The rest of 2 section 14 platoon push forward to the concealment of the hedgerow, whilst 3 section bug out with the Stuart and Churchill. The 3rd Panzer III has relocated to cover the main road. It's taken 4 hits but still active. On my right flank, 2 section 14 platoon come under fire, as the rest of the platoon move up to reinforce. With the platoon in position, they start to lay down suppressive fire. A detachment from one section begin the assault. Meanwhile, on my left flank, 13 platoon continue their advance past the knocked out Panzer IV. I use platoon attack drill to push the weak resistance on my right flank. Meanwhile, a Churchill has managed to sneak forward and get shots on the 3rd Panzer IV. 2 solid hits, but it's still active. 6 hits in total and it's still active. I suddenly get eyes on the King Tiger. It is a thing of beauty, but I think it's compensating for something. It's sitting in an overwatch position on my right flank. And judging by the size of the holes, I think that's what knocked out my close support Churchill. I want to provide armour support for 14 platoon. So I make the decision to push forward a Stuart at full speed to try and gain cover at Objective Paris. It's running a gauntlet of a Panzer IV and the King Tiger. It reaches the hedgerow, but it's knocked out. Taken out by a pack at the rear of the battlefield. 13 platoon advance through the cornfield on my left flank. Suddenly they're ambushed. They panic and rout. It's the Panzer IV crew with pistols. I retaliate with heavy 303 fire from Brenz and HE fire from 2-inch mortars. I continue to try and find a route to support 14 platoon on my right flank. Thankfully, shots from Panzer II hit trees. I have 2 identified active Panzer IVs, a King Tiger and a pack gun. There are also advancing infantry contacts on the yellow line and defending contacts on my right flank at Hector. I'm going to continue to use 13 platoon to push my left flank to take out the 2nd Panzer IV and 14 platoon to push forward into Objective Hector. I'm calling an arty strike on the yellow line to try and interdict any advancing infantry. At the moment, I'm struggling to find a route to bring my armour to effectively enter the battle. "14 platoon continue to push past Paris and into Hector. I rush forward the 2nd Stuart in an attempt to support 14 platoon. The Pioneer Squad blow the hedgerow at the edge of Hector. as 14 Platoon try to gain fire superiority. The Stuart provides close support. After several minutes of inactivity, King Tiger 1 starts to move. It's advancing towards Hector on my right flank, and I choose to withdraw my forces. The Stuart, who I'd ordered to reverse through the gap he drove through, chose to reverse a completely different route. And the driver takes them into a kill zone. They're caught in a crossfire from two 75mm Panzer IVs. On my right flank, King Tiger 1 seems to be covering the advance of the infantry. And I order 14 Platoon to withdraw to the western edge of Hector. On my left flank, the Piat crew from 13 Platoon move up to try and get eyes on the 2nd Panzer IV. They inch forward using sneak and peek. A shape charge hit. The team scrabble to reload as the 75mm gun looms over them. The crew starts to bail and a second hit. As King Tiger 1 continues its advance, I get eyes on King Tiger 2. No one mentioned 2 King Tigers. We're nearly 60 minutes into battle. My advance has stalled. The main thrust of the counterattack seems to be directed on my right flank against Hector. I have a Panzer IV and 2 King Tigers, and the pack is still active on the yellow line at the rear of the AO. There is also a heavy artillery barrage falling on objective Hector. I make the decision to try and use 13 Platoon to try and get flanking manoeuvre on the attacking 21st. I shall try and set up a defensive line on the western side of objective Hector. The artillery barrage causes me a major problem. The casualty you see in the screen is the FO, so I lose access to the 2nd Typhoon and all of my heavy artillery. It was a foolish mistake to bring my FO so close to the front line. I relocate Churchill, which is supported by a recently arrived Sexton, and the 2 Achilles tank destroyers. My forward elements of 13 platoon on my left flank come under heavy fire. And I try to relocate Churchills to provide fire support. They are constantly dancing around line of sight from the King Tigers. I try and push a Churchill through the breach hole in the hedgerow. And my shoulders sag as he heads towards the main road. Maybe the Panzer IV's main gun's knocked out, but I'm just going to put it down to superior Churchill optics. After 9 or 10 solid hits, Panzer IV on the main highway is knocked out. I'm trying to catch the counter-attacking infantry and enfilade fire. Spotting is erratic, and I'm under the constant threat of the King Tigers. I also order a Churchill to try and deal with the pack. Suddenly, more pre-dialed in artillery. I'm trying to set up my defensive fields of fire. My first will be from the farmhouse on my left flank, which is currently under artillery fire. The second will be the eastern edge of Objective Hector. The 21st's counterattack continues on my right flank, with the 2 King Tigers providing overwatch. I'm calling in a mortar barrage along the grey line. The goal is to interdict the counter-attacking infantry. My 2 Achilles tank destroyers are the only effective weapons I have against the King Tigers. The German artillery is particularly effective today. I make a snap decision to try and utilise the smoke from the falling artillery to advance a single Churchill. It's a mistake, and I paid for it. The Achilles spots and shoots at one of the King Tigers. but misses. In the gun barrel smoke, he loses sight. It's then spotted and taken out. The fighting for Hector is fierce. I can't bring up armour to support because of the King Tigers, so the defence rests upon the infantry. The second Achilles moves up on my left flank. Meanwhile, suddenly, one of the King Tigers is on the move. The 70-ton tank negotiates around the knocked out Panzer IV. I have the Achilles covering the main highway. Penetration on the turret. Sexton spots the King Tiger, but it's mobile artillery, not a tank destroyer, and its 88mm shells just bounce off the Tiger. It's completely ineffective, so I order it to withdraw. It's spotted and knocked out. I see an opportunity for a Churchill to get a flanking shot. Tiger fires first and just misses. They trade shots, and I lose a Churchill. I try to maneuver the Achilles to get a better angle on the King Tiger. I suddenly spot infantry with Panzerfausts in the grass ahead of the Achilles. Thankfully they panic and rout. The Achilles spots the King Tiger and opens fire, but it misses. It loses contact in the gun smoke. They reacquire, and a second shot. But the King Tiger only requires one, and I lose the last Achilles. I have no AT which is going to be effective against the King Tigers, so I make the decision to withdraw on my left flank and reconcile on objective Hector. For the next 15 minutes, I try to hold my ground. and as the battle draws to a close, I get a British Army minor victory. I'm okay with that. Our force stats are similar, but I've managed to retain objectives Paris and Hector. I failed to render the enemy force ineffective, and I lost 8 tanks. So, with the battle finished, let's look at the final campaign result. A major victory for the British Army. Yay! It doesn't mention the final point score, listing only the losses. I lost 585 men killed and just over 400 wounded, versus the German forces 1200 killed and nearly 700 wounded. My tank and armour losses were less than the Germans. Honestly, it didn't feel like it at times. I think the heavy armour loss for the Germans was in Battle 13 and 14 whilst fighting for Grainville. This is a long campaign, potentially 15 missions, which has taken me nearly 7 months to complete and document. I want to say thank you to everyone who has watched the videos and for the positive comments. I think the campaign is good, well thought out, and I like the multiple branches it can take depending on the battle results. It does get tough at times, especially if you suffer casualties and are not reinforced. But that's real life. It is often difficult. The way the campaign creator has provided that difficulty has to be through weight of numbers and firepower for the Germans. The AI isn't sophisticated enough to pressure your weak points. It has to follow the predefined battle plan. I think the author has done well. I'll give this a solid thumbs up because it isn't easy. Well, I'm off for a well-earned cup of tea and to decide on which campaign is next. Thanks again to all of my viewers, and I hope you enjoyed watching the campaign.